Vincent Torres pushed his cleaning cart down the empty hallway of the mathematics building, the wheels squeaking softly in the silence. It was 2:15 in the morning, and this was his favorite time to work. No students rushing past, no professors asking him to come back later, just him and the quiet hum of the building at rest. He'd been cleaning this place for 12 years now. 12 years of mopping floors, emptying trash bins, and wiping down chalkboards filled with equations he couldn't begin to understand. At 58, Vincent had learned to appreciate the simple rhythm of his work. Clock in at midnight, clock out at 8 in the morning, go home to his small apartment, sleep, and do it all over again. Tonight felt different, though. Something in the air made him pause outside the third-floor library. The door was slightly ajar, which was odd. He always locked it after cleaning. His hand reached for his keys, but then he heard it. A small sound, barely audible, like someone trying very hard not to make any noise at all. Vincent's heart picked up speed. In all his years here, he'd never encountered anyone at this hour, except the occasional professor who'd fallen asleep at their desk. He pushed the door open slowly, and his eyes scanned the dimly lit room. Nothing seemed out of place at first. The long tables stood empty, books lined the shelves in perfect order, and the reading lamps cast their usual yellow glow. Then he saw her. Tucked into the corner behind the philosophy section was a small girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, curled up on the floor with a backpack as a pillow. Her clothes were dirty and too big for her thin frame. Dark hair fell across her face, and even in sleep she looked tense, ready to bolt at any moment. Vincent stood frozen. His first thought was to call security. That was the protocol. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way her small hand clutched that backpack even in sleep, or the fact that she'd chosen the most hidden corner of the library, behind the section nobody ever visited. This wasn't some kid pulling a prank. This was someone hiding. He took a quiet step back, thinking he'd just leave and let her sleep, but his shoe caught the edge of a book on the floor. The small thud made her eyes snap open. They were dark and alert, scanning for danger with an intensity that made Vincent's chest tighten. This was a child who'd learned to be afraid. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly, raising his hands. "I'm just the janitor. I clean here." She didn't say anything, just watched him like a cornered animal deciding whether to run or fight. "You hungry?" Vincent asked. It was the only thing he could think of. He slowly reached for his lunchbox on the cleaning cart and pulled out the sandwich his neighbor had made for him. "I got extra. Haven't touched it yet." The girl's eyes flickered to the sandwich, and Vincent saw her throat move as she swallowed. She was definitely hungry, but she still didn't move, didn't speak. Vincent set the sandwich on a nearby table and took several steps back. "I'm gonna go clean the next room. You can have it if you want. No strings attached." He turned and walked out, leaving his cart in the hallway. His hands were shaking slightly as he pretended to dust the display case outside the library. Through the doorway, he could see her sitting there, staring at the sandwich. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, she moved. Quick as lightning, she grabbed the sandwich and retreated back to her corner. Vincent waited until he heard the soft sound of eating before he spoke again, not looking at her, just talking to the air. "My name's Vincent. I work here every night. Have for 12 years now." He paused, wiping down the same spot on the display case over and over. "Used to have a daughter myself. She'd be about your age now, maybe a bit older." He didn't say that she died 7 years ago, hit by a drunk driver on her way home from school. Didn't say that his wife had left him a year later because looking at him reminded her too much of their loss. The girl didn't need to know all that. "Anyway," he continued, "this is a good spot you found, quiet, safe, but it gets cold in here at night. They turn down the heat to save money." He heard movement and glanced over. The girl had stood up, the sandwich wrapper clutched in her hand. She looked like she was getting ready to run. "Wait," Vincent said, pulling off his jacket. "At least take this. I got a spare in my locker." It was a lie. This was his only jacket. But something about this kid made him think of all the nights his daughter had forgotten her coat, and he'd given her his, and she'd laugh and say it swallowed her whole. He held out the jacket, not moving closer. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then slowly, the girl stepped forward and took it. Up close, Vincent could see she had light brown eyes that seemed too old for her face. There were dark circles under them and a small scar on her chin. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, like she hadn't used it in a while. "You got a name?" Vincent asked gently. She hesitated. "Lily. Nice to meet you, Lily." He smiled, trying to make it warm and unthreatening. You staying here tonight? She nodded, clutching the jacket to her chest. All right, I'll be around cleaning. If you need anything, just let me know. And Lily? He waited until she looked at him. I'm not going to call anyone. Not tonight, but we should probably talk in the morning about where you belong, okay? She didn't respond, just wrapped his jacket around her shoulders and disappeared back into her corner. Vincent finished his rounds that night, but his mind wasn't on his work. He kept thinking about those two old eyes, that careful way of moving, the hunger that had made her take the sandwich despite her fear. This wasn't a kid who'd just run away on a whim. Something bad had happened to her. When he returned to the library at 6 a.m. to check on her before the morning staff arrived, she was gone. The jacket was neatly folded on the table where he'd left the sandwich, and on top of it was a piece of paper. In careful handwriting, it said simply, "Thank you for being kind." But what caught Vincent's attention was the doodle in the corner of the paper. A strange, intricate pattern that seemed to repeat itself in smaller and smaller versions, like looking into an infinite mirror. He'd never seen anything like it. He tucked the paper into his pocket and picked up his jacket. It still held a faint warmth from her small body. As he locked up the library and prepared to head home, Vincent made a decision. Tomorrow night he'd bring an extra sandwich, maybe some fruit, a thermos of hot soup. He didn't know why this particular kid had gotten under his skin. Maybe it was the loneliness he saw in her eyes that matched his own. Maybe it was the chance to be needed again, to protect someone when he'd failed to protect his own daughter. Whatever the reason, Vincent knew he'd be back tomorrow night, hoping that scared little girl would be there too. He just didn't know yet that finding Lily would change everything. That the strange pattern she'd drawn wasn't just a doodle, and that the quiet kid hiding in the MIT library held secrets that would shake the entire university to its core. For now, though, Vincent just folded the paper carefully and headed home, already planning what to pack for tomorrow night. The next night, Vincent came to work with his lunchbox packed twice as full as usual. He'd stopped at the grocery store and bought things a kid might like. An apple, some cookies, a juice box. He felt a bit foolish loading up his cart at midnight, but the hope that Lily might return kept him going. He tried to act normal as he made his rounds, but his eyes kept drifting to the library door. What if she didn't come back? What if she'd moved on to some other hiding spot, or worse? What if something had happened to her out on the streets? At 2 a.m., he finally allowed himself to check the library. His heart sank when he saw the empty corner where she'd slept. The room was exactly as it should be. Neat, orderly, lifeless. Vincent sighed and started his usual routine, erasing the chalkboards that lined the library's study rooms. These boards were always covered in complex math problems left by grad students who worked here during the day. He didn't understand any of it, just wiped it all away so they could start fresh tomorrow. He was halfway through the third board when he heard it again. That careful, quiet sound of someone trying to be invisible. "I brought dinner," he said without turning around. "If you're interested." There was a pause, then a soft voice. "You came back." "Course I did. I work here." He kept wiping the board, giving her space. "Got some cookies in there, too. The chocolate chip kind." He heard her move closer, and when he finally looked, Lily was standing a few feet away, that same backpack clutched in her hands. She looked even thinner in the harsh fluorescent light, if that was possible. "You're not scared I'll tell someone?" she asked. "Should I be?" She thought about this. Most people would call the police. "Yeah, well." Vincent set down his cleaning cloth. "I figure you got your reasons for being here, and until you're ready to talk about them, I can at least make sure you don't starve." Something shifted in her expression. Not quite trust, but maybe the beginning of it. She took the lunchbox he offered and sat down at one of the study tables. Vincent went back to cleaning, giving her privacy to eat. That's when he noticed something odd. On the chalkboard he'd just cleaned, there were new marks, small notations in the corner, written in what looked like a child's handwriting. He looked at Lily, who was intently focused on her sandwich, then back at the board. The marks weren't random. They were corrections, changes to the equation that had been there before. Vincent shook his head. No way. Those grad students spent hours on these problems. A kid couldn't just... That one was wrong, Lily said quietly, and Vincent realized she'd been watching him. The equation on that board. They made a mistake in the third line. It should be integrated, not differentiated. Vincent stared at her. You understand this stuff? She shrugged, looking embarrassed. I like numbers. They make sense. They don't lie. Where'd you learn math like this? This is graduate level stuff. Lily's face closed off. Around books, I find books. She didn't want to talk about it, that much was clear. Vincent let it drop, but his mind was racing. What kind of kid could do college-level math? Where had she come from? Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a routine. Vincent would arrive at midnight, and Lily would appear sometime around 2 a.m. He'd bring food, she'd eat, and then she'd wander around the library while he cleaned. She never talked much about herself, but slowly, carefully, she started to open up about other things. She liked books about space, thought that stars were the most honest things in the universe, because they always followed the rules of physics. She'd never had a pet but thought she'd like a cat someday. She was afraid of loud noises and always positioned herself near an exit. And she was absolutely brilliant with numbers. Vincent started paying attention to the chalkboards after she'd been in a room. Time and again, he'd find small corrections, elegant solutions to problems that had stumped the students. He mentioned it casually to one of the professors he sometimes saw in the early morning, Dr. Patterson, who taught advanced mathematics. Someone's been solving the problems on the study room boards, Vincent said as he emptied the trash in Patterson's office. The professor looked up from his coffee. What do you mean, solving them? I mean, there's answers. Different from what the students put up. Better answers, looks like. Patterson's eyebrows shot up. Show me. Vincent led him to the library study room where Lily's latest corrections remained on the board from the night before. He watched as Patterson's face went from curious to stunned. This is incredible, Patterson breathed, pulling out his phone to take pictures. This approach, I've been trying to teach this method for years. Whoever did this has an intuitive understanding of advanced calculus that most of my PhD students would kill for. You think it's good then? Good? Vincent, this is extraordinary. Do you know who's doing this? Is there a visiting scholar I don't know about? Someone working late? Vincent shrugged, trying to look casual. Building's pretty empty at night. Could be anyone. He couldn't tell Patterson about Lily. Not yet. Not until he understood more about why she was running, who she was running from. That night he brought it up carefully. So that math you do, how'd you really learn it? Lily was sitting cross-legged on the floor, her backpack open beside her. For the first time, Vincent could see what was inside. Books, lots of books, all of them thick textbooks on advanced mathematics, physics, and engineering. They looked old and worn with notes scribbled in the margins. I told you. I read. These are college textbooks, Lily, graduate school stuff. Most adults couldn't understand this. She pulled her knees up to her chest, defensive. I'm not stupid. Hey, I never said that. Opposite, actually. I'm saying you're really, really smart. Maybe too smart. He sat down on the floor across from her, his old knees protesting. Smart enough that somebody should be helping you. Getting you into a good school. Making sure you got a safe place to study. I had that once, she said quietly. A long time ago. What happened? She was quiet for so long, Vincent thought she wouldn't answer. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, bad people took it away. Vincent's chest tightened. Your parents? My mom, Lily's voice cracked. She went away. And then the bad people came. How long ago was this? I don't know anymore. Years, a lot of years. And you've been on your own all this time? She shook her head. There were places, people, but they weren't good places. So I left. Vincent wanted to ask more, wanted to understand, but he could see she was shutting down. Her hands were shaking slightly, and her eyes had that distant look that meant she was somewhere else, remembering things she didn't want to remember. Okay, he said gently. You don't have to talk about it. But Lily, you can't live in this library forever. It's not safe. It's not right. It's better than the other places. I believe you, but there are good people out there too. People who could help. Adults always say that, she said bitterly, and then they send you back to the bad places. Or they don't believe you. Or they just don't care. Vincent couldn't argue with that. He'd seen enough of the world to know she was probably right. The system was supposed to protect kids like her, but it failed more often than it succeeded. What if, he said slowly, an idea forming, what if we found a way to help you that didn't involve going back to any bad places? Someone who could, I don't know, appreciate how special you are. Lily looked at him with those two old eyes. Nobody cares about special. They care about useful. The words hit Vincent like a punch. What had this kid been through that she believed that? That night, after Lily had curled up in her corner with his jacket as a blanket, Vincent sat in the hallway and thought hard. He couldn't keep this secret forever, but he also couldn't bear the thought of turning her over to a system that might hurt her more than help her. He needed someone smart, someone trustworthy, someone who understood just how rare a mind like Lily's was. The next morning, he lingered after his shift, waiting for Dr. Patterson to arrive. When the professor appeared, coffee in hand and briefcase slung over his shoulder, Vincent made his decision. That person doing the equations, Vincent said. I might know who it is, but I need your word that you'll help them, really help them. Not just turn them over to some bureaucracy. Patterson studied him for a long moment. This sounds serious. It is. All right, Vincent. You have my word. If this person needs help, I'll do everything I can. Vincent hoped he was making the right choice. He hoped that trust wasn't just another thing that would get broken in Lily's already broken world. But something had to change. Because as brilliant as Lily was, as much as she tried to hide and survive, Vincent could see she was fading. The weight of whatever she was carrying was too much for any kid to bear alone. Vincent didn't sleep well that day. He kept thinking about Lily, about Dr. Patterson, about whether he'd just made a terrible mistake. By the time his alarm went off at 10 p.m., his stomach was in knots. He arrived at work early, at 11:30 instead of midnight, and found a note taped to his cleaning cart. Meet me in conference room B at 2 a.m. Come alone. Patterson. The next few hours crawled by. Vincent cleaned mechanically, his mind elsewhere. When Lily appeared at her usual time, he tried to act normal, but she picked up on his tension immediately. Something's wrong, she said. No, just tired. He handed her the food he'd brought. Listen, I might have to step away for a bit tonight, but I'll be right upstairs if you need me. Her eyes narrowed. You told someone. Vincent's heart sank. She was too smart. I talked to a math professor, just to ask about the equations. He doesn't know it's you. Not yet. Lily was already shoving things into her backpack, preparing to run. Wait, please. Vincent held up his hands. Just give me a chance to feel this out. If it seems wrong, if it seems like they won't help, I'll warn you before anyone comes down here. I promise. She paused, torn between flight and the fragile trust she'd built with him over the past weeks. 1 hour, she finally said. If you're not back in 1 hour, I'm gone. Fair enough. At 2 a.m., Vincent climbed the stairs to conference room B. His hands were sweating. Through the door's window, he could see Dr. Patterson, but there was someone else with him. A younger woman, maybe in her mid-30s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore jeans and an MIT sweatshirt, and she was studying something on a laptop with intense focus. Vincent knocked and entered. Vincent, thank you for coming. Patterson gestured to the woman. This is Dr. Helena Chen. She's a physics professor here. I asked her to join us because of her particular expertise. Helena looked up and Vincent was struck by the intelligence in her eyes. And something else. Sadness, maybe, or old pain. Mr. Torres, she said, standing to shake his hand. Dr. Patterson showed me the photos of the chalkboard solutions. I need to know who's doing this work. That depends, Vincent said carefully, on what you plan to do with that information. I plan to help them, Helena said. Because if what I suspect is true, this person is in serious danger. Vincent felt his pulse quicken. What do you mean, danger? Helena pulled up something on her laptop and turned it to face him. It was a photo of a woman, maybe in her 40s, with kind eyes and dark blonde hair. She was standing at a chalkboard mid-lecture, and Vincent could see that same strange fractal pattern Lily always drew in the corner of the board behind her. This is Dr. Elena Volkov, Helena said. She was my mentor, my thesis advisor, and one of the most brilliant physicists of our generation. She won the Nobel Prize in Physics 8 years ago for her work on quantum field theory. I was her graduate student at the time. Vincent stared at the pattern on the chalkboard in the photo. It was identical to the one Lily had drawn on that first note. 3 years after winning the Nobel, Helena continued, her voice tight, Elena's husband died in a car accident. They had a little girl, maybe 3 years old at the time. The husband's brother tried to get custody, claimed Elena was unstable, unfit to parent. There was a nasty court battle, and then one day they both vanished. Elena and her daughter, just gone. When was this? Vincent asked, though he already knew the answer. 7 years ago. The room was quiet. Vincent could hear his own heartbeat. The police investigated, Helena went on. They found Elena's car abandoned near a bridge. Some of her belongings were in it, but no body was ever recovered. Most people assumed she'd jumped, that the custody battle and the grief over losing her husband had been too much. But I never believed it. Elena loved her daughter more than anything. She would never have left her. What about the daughter? Vincent asked. Gone, vanished the same day. The uncle claimed he didn't know where she was, but he had connections to some very nasty people. There were rumors of human trafficking, of the Russian mob. Helena's hands clenched. I spent 2 years trying to find them. Hired private investigators. Followed every lead. Nothing. Eventually, I had to accept that they were probably both dead. She pulled up another photo, this one of a chalkboard covered in equations. But then Dr. Patterson showed me these solutions, and I recognized the methodology immediately. This is Elena's approach. Her signature style. And that symbol? She pointed to a small fractal pattern drawn in the corner. That's something Elena always drew. She called it the Volkov fractal. Used to say it represented infinite possibilities within finite space. Vincent felt like the floor was tilting under him. You think the person doing these equations is Dr. Volkov? That was my first thought. But no, Helena shook her head. Elena would have come forward. She'd have no reason to hide. But her daughter, if she somehow survived, if she inherited even half of her mother's genius. She'd be about 10 years old now, Vincent said quietly. Yes. The three of them looked at each other, the implications hanging heavy in the air. There's a child, Vincent said slowly, who's been coming to the library at night. Smart kid, really smart. She's scared of something, won't talk about her past. And she draws that pattern all the time. Helena's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, where is she? Is she safe? She's safe for now. But she's alone. She's been living on the streets, hiding. She mentioned bad people, places she escaped from. We have to help her, Helena said urgently. If she's who I think she is, and if the wrong people find her. That's why I need to know you're serious about helping, Vincent said firmly. This kid, whoever she is, she's been through hell. She doesn't trust adults. She's ready to run at the first sign of trouble. If we do this wrong, we might lose her forever. Dr. Patterson spoke up. Vincent, what do you suggest? Let me talk to her first. Prepare her. She needs to know you're safe, that you're not going to turn her over to some system that'll send her back to wherever she escaped from. Can I meet her? Helena asked, her voice almost pleading. I need to know if it's really her. Vincent thought about Lily downstairs, probably pacing, probably ready to bolt. He checked his watch. His hour was almost up. Come with me, he said. But let me go in first. And no matter what, stay calm. Don't rush her. Don't push. They made their way down to the library. Vincent's heart was pounding as he pushed open the door. For a terrible moment, he thought she'd already left. The corner where she usually stayed was empty. Then he saw her. She was standing by the window, backpack on her shoulders, clearly ready to run. But she'd waited. She'd trusted him enough to wait. Hey, he said softly. Sorry I'm a bit late. Lily's eyes moved past him to Helena and Dr. Patterson in the hallway. Her whole body tensed. It's okay, Vincent said quickly. These are the professors I mentioned. They want to help. Everyone says they want to help, Lily said, her voice flat. Helena stepped forward slowly, and Vincent saw tears in her eyes. I knew your mother, she said gently. Elena Volkov. She was my teacher. Lily went very still. For a long moment she didn't move, didn't breathe. Then in a voice so small Vincent almost couldn't hear it. You knew my mama? Yes, she was brilliant and kind, and she loved you so much. She used to keep a photo of you on her desk. You were wearing a blue dress and you were laughing. Lily's hand went to her throat, where Vincent now noticed she wore a small pendant on a chain. The dress had butterflies. Yes, Helena whispered. It did. They told me she was dead. They told me she jumped off a bridge because she didn't want me anymore. That's a lie. Helena's voice was fierce now. Elena would never have left you by choice, never. Lily's face crumpled, and suddenly she was crying. Not the quiet tears Vincent had seen before, but deep, shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere so deep and hurt that it broke his heart to hear them. Helena crossed the room and knelt down, and after a moment's hesitation, Lily collapsed into her arms. Vincent had to look away, his own eyes burning. Dr. Patterson cleared his throat. We should call the authorities. No, Vincent and Helena said at the same time. If what Lily told me is true, Vincent said, she was taken by her uncle and sold to traffickers. If we report this through normal channels, there's a chance those people find out. They might come for her again. Then what do we do? Patterson asked. Helena pulled back from Lily, wiping the girl's tears with her sleeve. We call the FBI directly. I have a contact from when I was searching for Elena. Someone who specializes in trafficking cases. Someone who can protect her. Lily looked up at Helena with those two old eyes. What if they don't believe me? What if they send me back? I won't let that happen, Helena promised. I couldn't save your mother, but I'll be damned if I lose you too. Vincent watched as Lily seemed to make a decision. She reached into her backpack and pulled out one of the old textbooks. It fell open to a page covered in handwritten notes in the margins. Notes in a different handwriting than Lily's. These were Mama's, Lily said quietly. I took them when the bad people weren't looking. They're all I have left of her. Helena took the book with shaking hands, and Vincent saw her face go pale as she read the notes. What is it? He asked. These notes? They're dated. This one is from 2 years ago. Helena looked up, her voice shaking. Vincent, Elena might still be alive. The words hung in the air like electricity before a lightning strike. Elena might still be alive. Vincent watched as Helena's hands trembled, holding that old textbook like it was made of glass. How do you know? Dr. Patterson asked. The notes could be old. Maybe Lily had the books for years. No. Lily's voice was quiet but certain. I only got the books a year ago. Maybe a little more. Helena sank into a chair, her face pale. Tell us everything, please, every detail you can remember. Lily looked at Vincent, and he gave her an encouraging nod. She took a deep breath, her small hands twisting together. I don't remember everything from when I was little, she began. Just pieces. My mama's voice. The way she smelled like coffee and chalk. She used to sing to me in Russian, and she'd draw that pattern. Lily gestured to the fractal she'd drawn on her paper. She'd say it was like me. Small now, but with infinity inside. Helena's eyes filled with tears, but she stayed quiet, letting Lily speak. Then Uncle Dmitri came. My papa had just died, and Uncle Dmitri said he wanted to take care of us. But Mama didn't trust him. They fought a lot. I remember hiding under my bed and hearing them yell. He said Mama was crazy, that she couldn't take care of me, that the courts would give him custody. One day I was at the park with my nanny. Uncle Dmitri showed up. He told the nanny that Mama had sent him to pick me up. She believed him. Lily's voice got smaller. He took me to a house I'd never seen before. There were other kids there. He kept me locked in a room for days. I cried for Mama, but she never came. Vincent felt sick. He wanted to stop this, to spare her from reliving it, but he knew she needed to tell it. They needed to know. After a while, Uncle Dmitri sold me. He gave me to a man named Victor, and Victor took me to a different place. A big house with lots of rooms. There were other children there too. Some were from other countries. They made us work. Cleaning sometimes. Other things. She paused, and Vincent saw something dark cross her face. They told us if we tried to run, they'd kill our families. They said my mama was dead, that she'd jumped off a bridge because I was bad, because I was too much trouble. You weren't bad, Helena said fiercely. None of that was your fault. You know that, right? Lily shrugged, a gesture that said she'd heard the words but couldn't quite believe them. I was in that house for a long time. 3 years, maybe 4. They moved us around sometimes. Different houses, different cities. Always the same, though. Always locked doors and people who hurt you if you didn't work fast enough. Then, about 1.5 years ago, they moved me to a new place. A farmhouse upstate, really old and falling apart. There were fewer kids there. Just 3 of us. And the people were different, meaner. One of them, Alexei, he liked to... She stopped, swallowed hard. He just liked to hurt people. Vincent's hands clenched into fists. Helena looked like she might be sick. But there was something else at that house. Something I wasn't supposed to know about. There was a basement, and the door was always locked. Triple locked. And sometimes late at night I'd hear sounds. Someone crying. Someone screaming. A woman's voice. Helena leaned forward. You heard a woman in the basement? Lily nodded. At first I thought maybe I was imagining it. But one night I was cleaning near the basement door and I heard them talking. Victor and Alexei. They were standing right there, and they didn't think I understood Russian. But Mama had taught me. She used to speak it when she was happy. What did they say? Vincent asked gently. Victor said the woman in the basement was becoming a problem, that she wouldn't stop fighting, that they'd had her for years and she still screamed for her daughter every day. Alexei laughed and said maybe they should just kill her and be done with it. Lily's voice cracked, but Victor said no, that she was too valuable, that the people who wanted her kept paying to keep her alive. Helena's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Then Alexei said something about the physicist and how she wasn't so smart now. And Victor said Volkov still thinks we'll let her go if she cooperates. She doesn't understand that she knows too much. The room was dead silent. Vincent could hear his own heartbeat loud in his ears. I didn't understand at first, Lily continued. The name Volkov. I knew that was my mama's last name, but I thought she was dead. They'd told me she was dead, so I thought maybe it was a coincidence, maybe a different Volkov. What changed your mind? Helena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. A few days later, I was cleaning the hallway near the basement again, and I heard her voice, singing. It was so quiet I almost missed it, but she was singing the lullaby, the one Mama used to sing to me, in Russian, the exact same song. Tears were streaming down Lily's face now. I knew then. I knew it was her. My mama was down there. She was alive, and they'd had her the whole time. Did you try to get to her? Dr. Patterson asked. I tried, but the door was too locked, and I knew if they caught me trying, they'd kill me, maybe kill her too. So I waited. I watched. I tried to figure out a way. But then one morning Victor came to move me again, said they were shutting down that house, moving the operation. I knew if I got moved, I'd never find Mama again. So when he wasn't looking, I ran, just bolted out the door and kept running. That was 6 months ago. I've been on the streets since then, stealing food, hiding. I wanted to call the police, but I didn't know the address of the farmhouse. I didn't even know what state I was in when I escaped. I just ran until I couldn't run anymore, and I ended up here, at MIT. Why MIT? Helena asked. Because Mama used to bring me here when I was little, before everything happened. I'd sit in her office and draw while she worked. This place felt safe, like home. Like maybe if I came here I could remember the address. Remember something that would help me find her. Vincent felt his throat tight. This kid had been carrying all of this alone for months, living on the streets trying to figure out how to save her mother, while staying hidden from the people who'd enslaved her. Did you remember the address? Helena asked urgently. Parts. I remember it was a 2-story white farmhouse with a red barn, and there were 3 big trees in front all in a row, and the mailbox at the end of the driveway was broken, hanging sideways. And I remember seeing a sign for a town when Victor drove me there. Millbrook, I think it said Millbrook. Helena was already on her phone. There can't be that many places matching that description, especially if we narrow it to areas with known trafficking activity. We need to call the FBI, Dr. Patterson said. Right now. I already am. Helena had her phone to her ear. This is Dr. Helena Chen calling for Agent Rivera. Tell him it's urgent. It's about the Volkov case. Vincent sat down next to Lily and put his arm around her thin shoulders. She leaned into him, exhausted from telling her story. You did good, kid, he said softly. Really good. You stayed alive and you stayed smart, and you found your way to people who can help. What if she's not there anymore? Lily whispered. What if they moved her? What if they killed her because I escaped? Don't think like that. We're going to find her. Helena was pacing now, talking rapidly into the phone. Yes, I'm certain. The daughter is here with me now. She has information about the location. Yes, she's safe. No, I'm not taking her to a police station. Your office or nowhere? Fine, we'll be there in an hour. She hung up and turned to them. Agent Rivera is the head of the trafficking task force. He worked on Elena's case 7 years ago. He's meeting us at the FBI field office in Boston. Will they believe her? Vincent asked. They'll have to. Because if there's even a chance Elena is alive, they can't ignore it. Dr. Patterson stood. I'll drive. We should go now. As they gathered their things, Lily suddenly grabbed Helena's arm. Wait, there's something else. The books. The textbooks I have. They were in the basement. I saw Alexei carrying a box up one day and the books fell out. He cursed and kicked them. Said the crazy woman didn't need them anymore. He was going to throw them away, but I asked if I could have them. To learn English, I said. He thought it was funny, a slave kid wanting to read college books. But he let me keep them. She pulled out the stack of textbooks from her backpack. If these were in the basement with Mama, and if she was writing in them 2 years ago, maybe there are clues. Maybe she left messages. Helena took the books with shaking hands and started flipping through them. Page after page of complex equations, but in the margins, in tiny handwriting, there were notes, dates, observations, and then on one page something else. Look at this, Helena breathed. She held up the book, pointing to a margin note. In tiny letters, barely visible, it read, White Farmhouse. Red Barn. Can see Taconic Parkway from window. Town sign says Millbrook Pub. 1452. Basement window faces north. Sophie, if you ever find this, I love you. I never stopped looking. I never stopped loving you, Mama. The room went silent again. Lily's face crumpled and she reached out to touch the words, tracing them with her finger. She knew, Lily whispered. She knew I might find them. She left me a message. She never gave up on you, Helena said, her own tears falling now. And we're not going to give up on her. Come on. Let's go bring your mama home. The FBI field office in Boston was nothing like Vincent had imagined. No dramatic music, no agents rushing around with coffee cups and case files. Just a quiet building at 4 a.m. with fluorescent lights and the smell of burned coffee. Agent Rivera was a stocky man in his 50s with tired eyes that had seen too much. He listened to Lily's story without interruption, his expression neutral and professional. But Vincent noticed his jaw tighten when Lily described the farmhouse basement, the woman's screams, the years of captivity. The Volkov case was one of my failures, Rivera said when Lily finished. I spent 2 years trying to find Dr. Volkov and her daughter. Every lead went cold. Eventually, the case went inactive. I never stopped thinking about it, though. Never stopped wondering if I'd missed something. He looked at Lily with something like wonder. You're a brave kid. You know that? Lily just shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. Rivera pulled up a map on his computer. Millbrook, New York, small town, rural area. About 2.5 hours from here. We know trafficking operations have been active in that region. The Bratva, Russian organized crime, has been moving through there for years. He typed rapidly, pulling up property records. White Farmhouse, Red Barn, 3 trees near Taconic Parkway. I'm seeing 4 properties that might match. We'll need to move fast. If they think someone's onto them, they'll clear out quick. Probably kill any witnesses. Vincent felt Lily tense beside him. Helena reached over and took the girl's hand. How fast can you move? Helena asked. I'm making calls now. We'll have a tactical team assembled in an hour. But here's the thing. Rivera looked directly at Lily. I need you to understand that there's a chance we don't find your mother. 7 years is a long time. People don't always survive that kind of captivity. And if we do find her, she may not be the person you remember. Trauma changes people. I know, Lily said quietly. But she's my mama. Even if she's different, even if she's hurt, she's still my mama. Rivera nodded slowly. All right then. Let's bring her home. The next 4 hours were the longest of Vincent's life. They sat in a conference room, drinking terrible coffee and waiting. Dr. Patterson had gone back to MIT to handle things there, but Helena refused to leave. She sat with Lily, looking through the textbooks, talking quietly about Elena, sharing memories. She used to bring donuts to class every Friday, Helena said, smiling at a memory. Said that physics was hard enough without being hungry, and she'd do these demonstrations with everyday objects. Once, she explained quantum entanglement using a pair of socks. Lily laughed, a small sound but genuine. She did that at home too. Everything was a lesson. We couldn't just eat breakfast. We had to talk about the chemistry of cooking eggs. Did she still draw the fractals? Helena asked. Everywhere. On napkins, on my homework, on the bathroom mirror with soap. She said they reminded her that even the smallest things contain infinite complexity. That I was small, but I contained universes. Vincent watched them talk. These two people connected by love for the same woman, and he felt privileged to witness it. He'd started this journey just wanting to help a scared kid. He hadn't expected to become part of a rescue mission, or to sit in an FBI office hoping for a miracle. His phone buzzed at 8:47 a.m. A text from Rivera. Moving in on property number 2. Stand by. The minutes ticked past like hours. Vincent found himself praying, something he hadn't done since his daughter died. Please, he thought. Please let them find her. Please let this kid have her mother back. At 9:23 a.m., Rivera called. Helena put the phone on speaker. Agent Rivera? We found her. His voice was rough. We found Elena Volkov. She's alive. Lily made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Helena wrapped her arms around her and both of them were crying. Is she okay? Helena asked through her tears. She's hurt, malnourished. We're transporting her to Boston Medical Center now. She's conscious, responsive. When we found her, Rivera paused. She asked for her daughter. First thing she said was, "Is Sophie alive?" "Tell her yes," Lily whispered. "Please tell her yes, I will." And we got the bastards who did this. 5 arrests so far, including Dmitry Volkov and the men you described, Victor and Alexei. The house is a crime scene now. We'll be sorting through evidence for months. They met the ambulance at the hospital. Vincent stood back, letting Helena and Lily go forward. But Lily turned and grabbed his hand, pulling him along. "You too. You're part of this." The paramedics wheeled the gurney in, and Vincent got his first look at Elena Volkov. She was painfully thin. Her hair streaked with gray, though she couldn't be much past 40. There were scars on her arms and bruises in various stages of healing, but her eyes, when they opened, were alert and intelligent and searching. "Sophie," she whispered. "I'm here, Mama." Lily stepped forward, and suddenly she didn't look like the tough, street-smart kid Vincent had met in the library. She just looked like a little girl who'd been missing her mother for 7 years. "I'm here." Elena's face crumpled, and she reached out with shaking hands. Lily grabbed them, and then she was crying, and Elena was crying, and they were holding each other like they'd never let go again. "I looked for you," Elena sobbed. "I never stopped looking. They told me you were dead. They said they'd killed you, but I didn't believe them. I couldn't believe them. I looked for you too, Mama. I knew you were alive. I knew you wouldn't leave me." Vincent had to turn away, wiping at his own eyes. Helena was openly weeping, and even the tough paramedics looked misty. The reunion was brief. The doctors needed to examine Elena, to treat her injuries and begin the long process of recovery. But as they wheeled her toward the emergency room, she called out, "Wait, who found her? Who brought my daughter to me?" Helena stepped forward. "Dr. Volkov, it's me." "Helena Chen. I was your grad student." Elena's eyes widened. "Little Helena? You're all grown up. We found each other, your daughter and I. Well, actually, a janitor at MIT found her first. Vincent Torres. He kept her safe." Elena looked at Vincent, and he saw a depth of gratitude in her eyes that made him uncomfortable. "You saved my daughter's life." "She saved herself," Vincent said gruffly. "I just gave her sandwiches." "Thank you for the sandwiches, then. Thank you for everything." They took Elena away for treatment. The doctor said she'd be in the hospital for at least a week, maybe more. 7 years of captivity had taken a toll on her body, but her mind, they said, was remarkably intact. She'd spent her years in captivity solving physics problems in her head, writing equations in the margins of textbooks when she could steal them, holding on to her identity as a scientist because it was the one thing they couldn't take from her. Lily stayed at the hospital, refusing to leave her mother's side. Helena made calls, arranged things. She had a spare bedroom in her apartment, she said, room for both Elena and Sophie once Elena was released. She'd take a leave from teaching, whatever they needed. Vincent went home that morning and slept for 12 hours straight. When he woke up, he found himself crying for no reason he could name. Maybe relief, maybe exhaustion, maybe just the release of all the fear and hope he'd been carrying for weeks. The next few months were complicated. There were court cases, testimonies, therapy sessions. The media wanted to cover the story, the miraculous reunion of the Nobel Prize winner and her daughter. But Helena fiercely guarded their privacy. They needed time to heal, she said. Time to be a family again without cameras and reporters making them perform their trauma. Vincent visited them regularly. Elena insisted on making him dinner once a week, her way of saying thank you. She'd cook Russian food and tell stories about Sophie as a toddler. And Sophie would blush and laugh and be embarrassed in the way kids are when their parents talk about them. They discovered that Sophie, who'd been calling herself Lily for years, wanted to be called Sophie again. It was her name, her identity, and she was ready to reclaim it. The university offered Elena her position back, but she decided to take it slow. Part-time teaching, small classes. She was working with a therapist, dealing with the trauma, the nightmares, the complicated feelings that came with surviving. Sophie was enrolled in a special program for gifted children, one with counselors who specialized in trauma. She was still brilliant, still solving graduate-level equations like they were simple puzzles, but now she had time to be a kid too. to make friends, to learn that not all adults were dangerous. 6 months after the rescue, Vincent was mopping the floors at MIT when Helena found him. She had Sophie with her, and they were both grinning. "We have something for you," Helena said. They led him to a new building on campus, one that housed programs for at-risk youth interested in science and math. Above the door was a bronze plaque that read, "The Vincent Torres Center for Lost Children, where every child contains universes." "We couldn't have done this without you," Helena said. "Elena and I co-founded it. It's a place where kids who've been through trauma can come and learn and feel safe, like Sophie did in that library." Vincent stared at the plaque, unable to speak. "And there's more," Sophie said, bouncing on her feet. "Tell him the rest." Elena appeared from inside the building, walking with a cane but smiling. "We want you to work here, Vincent. Not as a janitor, as a coordinator. Someone the kids can trust, someone who knows how to make them feel safe, someone who brings sandwiches." "I don't know anything about running a center," Vincent protested. "You know the most important thing," Elena said. "You know how to see children that others overlook. You know how to help without demanding anything in return. That's rarer than you think." So Vincent became the coordinator of the Torres Center. Though he insisted they drop his name from the title, it felt too much like pride, and he'd only done what anyone should have done. He worked there for 5 years before retiring. In that time, the center helped 73 children find their way back from darkness. Some were trafficking victims, some were runaways, some were just kids who'd fallen through the cracks of a system that wasn't built to catch them. Each one of them got sandwiches, and safety, and someone who saw their infinite worth. Sophie graduated high school at 15 and went to MIT on a full scholarship, following in her mother's footsteps. Elena continued teaching, her work on quantum theory earning her a second Nobel Prize. Helena became one of the leading voices in physics, always making sure to credit the teacher who'd believed in her. And Vincent? He lived quietly, content in the knowledge that he'd made a difference. That one night, one scared kid, one act of kindness had rippled out into something bigger than he'd ever imagined. On the wall of his small apartment, he kept a framed piece of paper. A note in a child's handwriting that said, "Thank you for being kind," with a fractal drawn in the corner. A reminder that the smallest actions can contain infinite complexity, infinite possibility, infinite hope. And that sometimes, the greatest discoveries aren't made in laboratories or lecture halls. They're made in quiet moments in dark libraries, in the space between fear and trust where one person decides to see another person's worth and says simply, "I brought dinner, if you're interested."